Hello everybody and welcome to class. Going through a power and flow routine together, mixing strength and mobility. A little bit more on the intermediate to advanced side in terms of the exercises used as well as the pace and intensity of class today. As always, listen to your body, make any adjustments that feel best to you, and have fun. No equipment, no props needed other than your mat. Let's lay down on our back and get started with our breathing. So make your way down onto your back, bending those knees, placing the feet a comfortable distance away from your pelvis. For our breathing today, let's take our hands to the lower front portion of our rib cage, reaching our fingertips towards those front hip bones. As you take a smooth, expansive inhale through your nose, feeling those two places maybe separate and expand away from one another. As you exhale, we're actively trying to pull those 4 points towards one another and towards our center. Let's take a few more deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Actively sliding our rib cage in and down towards those hip bones, sinking that rib cage heavy into our mat, bracing those abdominals. One more breath with me. Drawing those 4 points towards one another. From here, let's reach our fingertips directly up to our ceiling, shoulder height. Open and close those arms for me. A nice smooth open and close, palms facing the ceiling and towards one another. Feeling some gentle movement come into the shoulder blades, staying soft and long through the neck, face, and jaw. And nice and quiet in that rib cage and pelvis. Imagine that you're moving your arms through a thick fog here and actively press and push through that fog in both directions, warming up the shoulders. Few more here with me. From here, you can either keep those fingertips pointed towards the ceiling or bring those arms down for more support. I'm gonna leave that up to you. Lift your right leg to tabletop, stabilize your spine and rib cage. Left leg comes up to meet it. Let's now lower that right foot back down and left foot down, switching sides. Left leg lifts, right leg lifts, left leg lowers, right leg lowers. So we do a lift, lift, lower, lower, and just continue to alternate sides with me, finding our core and warming up our hips. Your fingertips can be pointed to the ceiling or arms for more support can be anchored down by our sides. As we lift, lift, lower, lower, keeping the pelvis, the spine, the rib cage, the shoulder blades stable to the mat underneath you, feeling that groundedness, feeling that anchoring. A beautiful openness to the chest and an ease to the neck. Few more here. Now let's meet in that tabletop. So our knees are over our hips, our shins are parallel to the ground. 4 arm circles, bring those arms back to the side of your room and down by the hips. 3 more this direction. Holding that tabletop nice and steady, zipping up through our core. 1 more this direction, and reverse. Finding your breath, anchoring the rib cage and center. 2 more big, beautiful circles. From here, lower the feet down to the mat, interlace the fingers at the base of the skull, close the elbows slightly in, moving into our chest. Left inhale to prepare. Exhale, draw the ribcage towards the pelvis, float the heart center up, gazing towards the knees, and rolling the upper spine down. Find your flow, find your power through your center. We're thinking about pulling those abdominals away from our clothing down towards our spine, allowing our head to stay heavy in our hands so that our neck is nice and relaxed, our head is nice and supported. Focus on the rib cage pulling down towards those hips. Breath and movement are one here. Few more chest lifts. Let's take 2 more together. On your last one, meet me up in your chest lift. Revisit that lift, lift, and lower, lower. Keeping the chest lifted, keeping the rib cage pulled down towards the pelvis, head heavy in the hands. If you're craving even more, join me in your tabletop and go for a double leg lower, knowing you could always return back to those single lift, lift, lower, lower. So I'm really trying to keep my spine super glued to the mat underneath me, knowing I don't need to fully lower my feet down, and then I'm trying to reel those knees up from my core, keeping that chest lifted. Finishing out your last one here, pulling the knees into the chest, lowering the head down. Let's place the feet hip width apart, reach those arms back up to the ceiling. Our half butterfly, just start to open and close that right leg, opening out and closing in. So I'm feeling my knee point out to the right side of my room, and then I'm using my inner thigh and hip muscles to bring that knee back to that starting position. We're opening and closing through the right side. I'm taking my hands to my hip bones here for a little bit of accountability, making sure that I'm not moving in my pelvis, just moving that thigh bone in that hip socket, warming up those inner thighs. Still feeling that connection, that tightening right inside those hip bones as we close that knee. Let's do 2 more this side. And switching sides. Now left knee opens and closes. So we're trying to stay quiet through that right leg, that right hip, and just move from that left thigh. Arms could be wherever you'd like here, reaching towards the ceiling, resting on the hip bones, anchored by your side. Find a nice, smooth, controlled quality of movement here. Two more. Very nice, taking the hands back behind the head, pulling the knees into the chest. We'll do a chest lift with a leg extension. So you're gonna curl the head, neck, and shoulders up, send the legs out. And as you lower the head, neck, and shoulders, you'll pull the knees in, either in towards the chest, or for more challenge, you can stop the knees at your tabletop. Remember, we're anchoring the spine into the mat, really deflating those abdominals as we curl up. A few more here. Head heavy in the hands. Pull that rib cage down towards your pelvis. Float those legs away from you. Moving into our crisscross. Pull the right knee in, twist towards the right, smooth through center, and twist towards the left. Let's start to activate through the back of the hip as we push that leg away from us. And think about the rib cage coming up and spiraling towards the knee that's pulling in towards your body. Find some rhythm. Head heavy in the hands, chest lifted, really burning out that core. Warming up the entire body here, getting that heart rate and heat up. Last few here. One more each side. And release. From here, take a nice little windshield wiper of those knees side to side. Roll to one side of your body, pull your knees into your chest. Take your arms in front of you at shoulder height, resting your head down to the mat. Reach that top arm up and start to spiral towards the opposite side of your room, closing that hand back in over that bottom hand. So you're reaching towards the ceiling, coming into a nice spine twist. So if your knees are pointing towards the left, you're gonna spiral and look towards the right, bringing those arms out to a T, and vice versa. We're keeping those hip bones facing the direction that our knees are pointed, so that we're really rotating from that rib cage. Getting some nice openness, space, and power in the body. Let's roll to the other side. So relaxing the head and then spiraling. So I'm feeling a nice rotation through my neck as well, looking towards my ceiling, and looking towards the opposite side of the room. Again, finding the range and pace that feels best to your body. Balancing strength with mobility through this class today. Getting the best of both. 2 more here. And then we're gonna go through a little weight transfer flow. So you've got your knees pulled into the chest. You're gonna start to reach your top arm and knee towards the ceiling. Continue to rotate towards the opposite side of the room and lay on that side. And we're just gonna start to switch from side to side, using our core to roll side to side. You can adjust the positioning of your arms. It may feel better to take kind of a book reading position, a 90-degree bend at those elbows. Opening those knees nice and wide, rolling onto the back and rolling onto the side. Have fun with this one. So good for our body. Any kind of rolling motion involving all the joints moving with fluidity and never trying to crash land, trying to have this kind of soft, delicate, gentle, mindful landing on those joints. Few more here, and then we'll get into some bridging. 1 more each side with me. Very good. Let's roll onto our back. Adjust yourself back, centered on your mat. Feet are fairly close into your pelvis. Toes are long and spread wide. Arms are anchored by the sides. Rib cage is knitted together. Let's begin to curl the pelvis, find the glutes, and peel the spine, starting with the tailbone up off the mat, lifting to the base of the shoulder blades. Joining me at the height of your bridge. Inhale, hold. Keeping your hips high, pull your chest and rib cage down first, and roll vertebrae by vertebrae down. And let's flow a few more times in this bridge so we feel pelvic floor pull up and in, glutes engage, and we're really trying to go very sequentially in the body. I think about keeping the load to the lower half of my body, so I'm trying to drag my pelvis forward towards my feet towards my hips, so there's no load in my shoulders, no load in my neck. Arms can be wherever you'd like. You can reach them up to the ceiling. You can rest them by your sides. Find what feels best to you. Feel all 4 corners of your feet even on the mat. So from big toe to little toe, both sides of the heel. Breath and movement is 1. Try to keep those hips high and pull that chest down. Let's do 2 more articulated bridges. Meet me up in your next bridge. Find your bridge, magnetizing inner thighs towards another, tracking knees over hips, little lowers and lifts of your hips down and up an inch. Finding that power through the glutes and hamstrings, feeling that zip and stabilizing, kind of slurping in through our center, through our abs. Using the breath to guide these pulses, small, precise, powerful pulses. Shoulders totally relaxed, neck totally relaxed. Last 4 here, pulse 4, 3, reach and hold. Lifting the hips a tiny bit higher, opening up through the front of the leg and torso. Big inhale here. Keeping those hips high, melt that chest all the way down. And we're gonna roll ourselves up and make our way to all 4s. Join me in all 4s. Lifting our toes and tucking them under, taking a little bit of rocking forward and back just to get our joints ready for our weight bearing. So from your all 4s position, tuck those toes under and start to pull the hips back towards those feet, and then rocking the shoulders over those wrists. I've got my fingers spread wide, and I'm really focusing on staying lifted out of my shoulder joint versus collapsing into that joint. So I feel my chest and rib cage pulled up and in. I feel my shoulder blades wide, tops of shoulders away from my ears. Few more here. Now from here, find all 4s. Get nice and organized. I'm gonna walk my knees a tiny bit closer and untuck my toes. I'm gonna extend my right leg back behind me just to hip height. Everything else stays square. I'm gonna pull that right knee and place it down underneath me, and then I'm gonna pick my left knee up and take a little bit of an abdominal scoop. Lowering that knee, returning to neutral. Right leg goes back, it comes down, and then left knee lifts in towards the chest. So we go right leg behind us, left leg pulling in towards that chest. That's your flow. I'm continuing to kind of drag my hands towards my knees towards my hands, pulling and zipping up through my center. I'm in a nice neutral pelvis as I kick my leg to the back, and then I'm just finding the lowest abdominals, taking a nice scoop through those abs. Feeling the spine long, feeling the connection of the front and back body working together here. Hips the entire time like two headlights of a car, staying down towards your mat. Getting nice flexion and an extension through that hip. Now from here, meet me with your right leg to the back, making sure hands are underneath the shoulders, knees underneath hip, and then pull that right knee in towards that scoop position, sending it out. In and out. Thinking about scooping with those low abs and then finding that glute to extend that leg to hip height. Spine is long, I'm lifted up out of my wrists, knowing you always have the option to place the hands on two blocks or come down to your forearms. Few more here, and then we'll go into our hip circles. Let's take two more. Now from here, you're gonna lower that knee and find a 90-degree bend in that knee. I'm flexing my foot. I'm gonna lift my thigh and knee to the side, circle it up towards my ceiling, and then lower it to that hover. Side, up, and around. Finding this nice smooth circle through my hip socket, keeping my core and upper body as stable as possible. Reaching that thigh up, back behind me, creating space, and then lowering with control down. Pulling up and through my center, taking an ever so slight tuck to my tailbone just to stabilize my pelvis. Imagine creating space and openness in that hip socket, so really pushing and circling that thigh. Two more this direction. Very good. Let's stay on the same leg and reverse, pressing straight up, bringing that knee to the side and lowering that knee down. Up, around, and down. Continuing to spread those fingers wide, drag knee towards hands, hands toward knee, slurping up through our center. Find your power. Home stretch here. Press around and down. Last two with me here. Nice work. Taking a little break, sinking back into your child's pose. And then you're gonna make your way laying on the left side of your body, coming into your forearm position. So let's take a moment to roll this shoulder back, lift through this bottom rib cage. Bottom leg is gonna be bent with me today. Top leg will be stretched long. We're gonna lift that leg to hip height, kick it to the front, bring it to the side, and tap it down. That's your first flow. Lift, sweep to the front, reach to the side, and tap down. Pointing and flexing the foot if you choose. Imagining that the spine, the waist is getting longer as you reach that leg. Reach to hip height, flex kick front, sweep to the side and down, keeping those hip bones aligned, keeping that shoulder rolled back, chest open. If it's too much to be up on this forearm, know you can always come down onto your side body. Now from here, kick that leg to the front, bend it in and extend it slightly back. Flex kick front, point bend in into kind of a bicycling motion. Find your power, find a nice range of motion and rhythm in your body. Pushing and carving with that hip, but trying to keep the pelvis stable, those abs stay deeply engaged. Two more here. Balancing strength with momentum. Now kick that leg to the front and little pulses up to the front. 8, 7, 6, 5, lifting out of that shoulder. 4, 3, 2, 1. Roll onto your back. Coming onto your forearms. Get proud in that chest, roll those shoulders back, slight tuck of the tailbone, and then you're gonna meet me in your tabletop, moving into our toe taps. One leg down, then the other. You always have the option to lower fully onto your back here if this forearm position feels like too much, working through our low core here. If you're feeling good with toe taps, progress to a bicycle ride, knowing you can always revert back to the previous exercise. Listen to your body. Find a nice rhythm here. I'm trying to keep that slight scoop of my tailbone under, but stay rolled back through my shoulders. Feeling the front and back of the thigh working here as I carve through space. Last few here. You've got 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's make our way back to all fours. This time it's gonna be your left leg that kicks back and your right knee that pulls underneath you. So take a second, knowing you can always come down to forearms or prop onto blocks. When you're ready, kick left leg back this time and pull right knee underneath you. My shoulder blades are wide. I'm distributing that weight between all 10 finger pads so I don't overly load my wrists. And I'm trying to land softly on those joints, being kind to those knees. So there's a lightness, there's a grace to that weight transfer. Feeling my core stable, my spine long, my head in line with my spine. Carving through this hip sequence. 2 more sets here, and then we'll just move that left leg. Now from here, let's extend left leg long, pulling it into the chest and extending out. Feeling the abs and the glute pushing that mat away. And again, try not to overly load your upper body. Find that focal point of that triangle of the knee and the 2 hands and try to center your body weight there. Can that leg and spine get longer with each repetition? Let's go for 4, 3, 2, 1. Moving into our hip circles, maybe flexing that foot, bending at that knee, circle the knee side, back, and down. We go side, back, and down. Finding your speed. This side's a little harder for me, so I'm slowing it down a hair just to really make sure I get the full range and keep my pelvis as stable as possible. A slight tuck of the tailbone to stabilize into those hips. Knowing you can always come to those forearms if that's gonna be a better choice for your body. I'm trying to stay wide in my shoulder blades, lifted out of my shoulder joint. Pulling up and in right inside those 2 hip bones. Let's reverse our circles. Pressing up, circling that knee side, smooth, lower, down. Press around and down. Carving with control. Few more here. Last 2. 1 more. Nice work. Quick release, maybe through a child's pose. And now you'll make your way onto the right side of your body so that it's the left leg that's on top. Rolling your bottom shoulder. Lifting out of that bottom waist, knitting that rib cage. We're gonna lift and sweep to the front. Here we go. Lift, kick to the front, side and lower. Lift and kick. Thinking about length, holding the power in our center so our leg can move freely. I'm trying to keep this lift and openness to my collarbones, feeling the front and back of my hip engage. Never feel like I'm jamming on my joints. I feel light through my joints, active in those muscles. 2 more, then we'll take a bicycle ride together. 1 more with me. Keep it to the front. Let's bend and push to the back. Flex and kick front. Bend and extend to the back. Remember, as we extend to the back, we're trying to keep that pelvis quiet. So I'm using my glute and low abs to stabilize into that neutral pelvis, continuing to fight for that lift through my bottom ribcage and shoulder, and trying to keep that leg at hip height as much as I can. Breathe with me here. Last 2. 1 more. Now kick that leg to the front, little pulses up. 8, 7, 6, reaching long through that leg. 4, 3, 2, 1. Making our way back onto our back. Let's take a nice little windshield wiper through those knees. Returning back to our bridging, we are gonna visit some single leg bridging, knowing you always have the option to keep the feet down or place your Pilates ball underneath you for a more supportive choice. Make your way up into a nice organized bridge, feeling the power in the glutes, the core. When you're ready, marching one leg to tabletop and lowering it down, switching. You can hold the hips with the hands. You can place the ball underneath you. You can also choose to keep the hips down and just do the marching portion. So in this position, we're really working deep into our core. So I'm trying to keep the load in my glute and abdominals, not in my knee. So just letting that knee be soft and tracking, trying to keep those hips high and level as I lift one leg at a time. You can continue with this alternating march. If you're ready to progress with me, lift your right leg to tabletop, start to extend that leg out and pull it in. So I'm keeping the single leg bridge and I'm pushing that leg away from me and pulling it into that tabletop, extending so that it meets about that opposite thigh height. Knit that rib cage, use your entire core powerhouse. 4, 3, 2 more with me here, 2, 1, quick break, lower down, little reset. Big breath in, lift and organize that bridge, find the glutes, lifting now left leg to tabletop, and then we extend that leg out and pulling into that tabletop. So I'm trying to keep those hips level, keeping that load now into that right glute and my entire powerhouse. No load in my shoulders, in my neck, all through the glute and core. Breathe with me here. Last 2 here. And 1, lower down. When you're ready, flip onto your back. And let's take our swan. So I'm gonna leave it up to you where you'd like your hands closer in towards you, further away. Always feel free to play around with this one. I'm gonna start fairly close into my shoulders, resting my forehead down. My hips are hip width apart. Inhaling to prepare. I'm sliding my shoulder blades down my back and towards one another, and then I'm pressing gently into my hands to hover my head, heart, and hands up into my swan like I'm peeking over the edge of a cliff. And then I'm reaching long through my spine, trying to reach my heart center further forward, tapping my forehead back down. Please make sure it's the shoulder blades that activate first. So I'm trying to roll my shoulder blades back, draw them down my back, and draw them towards my spine. So really connecting into our midline here. If you're craving a full swan, maybe you take those hands a little wider and further away from you, taking your abdominals up with you and extending into your full swan, getting a nice stretch for those abs. And then again, I'm keeping my heart center lifted, reaching my chest and rolling back down. Begin to find your flow, slurping your abs, rolling your shoulders back. mini swan or full swan, adjusting the hands to find the position that feels best to your body, always taking our abdominals up with us so our spine is supported as we get this beautiful extension. Let's do 2 more, and then we're gonna add in a little strength flow together. 1 more all the way up and down. You'll meet me with your head back down to your mat. Take your time, no rush. When you're ready, take your hands back close to those shoulders. Pull those abs up and in, push the mat. Push yourself up and back, almost fully to a child's pose, almost like a puppy pose position. And then you're gonna reverse that pathway. Bring the chest forward. Take your tricep push-up down, chest comes down, forehead comes down, maybe picking those legs up into a double leg hover. So putting it all together, we're gonna push ourselves up, pull those hips back. We'll bring our chest forward, bend the elbows by the sides, and hover those legs. Knowing that the leg hover is optional, really focusing on this beautiful connection into our center and this nice smooth weight transfer. Feel free to just take one section of this flow or join me in putting all of this together. I'm feeling super smooth, gliding those shoulder blades up and down, using those triceps, using my back body to push myself up, stabilizing into my core and glutes to hover those legs. 2 more here. Now meet me all the way down, extending your arms long overhead. So arms are shoulder width, hips are hip width apart. Pull your abs up and in, hover your arms up, hover your legs up just off the mat. Keep your gaze down and start to flutter kick those arms and legs, moving into our swimming. Inhaling and exhaling here. Inhaling through the nose, exhaling through the mouth. It's a tiny little flutter kick. We're trying to stay very powerful, quiet, and stable in our center. Feeling that power through the glutes, the core, pulling up and in through the rib cage, and breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Last 4 seconds here. 3, 2, and 1. Push yourself up and back for me. Take your hands towards the right side of your mat, shifting your hips gently towards the left, and take 2 deep breaths here. When you're ready, switching sides, feeling this beautiful kind of crescent moon shape-like stretch, creating space and ease in the body. Meeting me in all fours, taking a variation of our thread the needle. So let's go ahead in this position. I've got my right leg, it's gonna extend out to the side. I'm gonna show you from the side. So my right leg is extended out. I'm gonna pick my right arm up and rotate towards my ceiling. And then I'm gonna try to thread underneath towards the left. So I'm getting this really amazing stretch through my inner thighs. You don't need to rest your forehead or the side of your head rather all the way down. Find your range. So I'm spiraling up and then twisting underneath. Ooh, that feels good. I'm feeling a really deep stretch through the inside of my groin, through my rib cage, through my shoulder. And I'm keeping a soft bend to my bottom supporting elbow as I come underneath, staying nice and wide in those shoulder blades. Find your range, soft and long in the neck. Feeling that stretch into that low back as well. Let's find that spiral one last time. And switching sides. So showing you from the side, now it's gonna be my left leg kicked out. Left arm reaches towards the ceiling. I scoop and thread underneath, pulling my hips slightly back. Feeling that beautiful stretch, inner thigh, back, shoulder. Getting a little bit of everything on this one. Noticing if it's easier for you to rotate one way versus the other. I definitely am having an easier time this side with this rotation, so just be mindful of that. 2 more with me. One more. Nice work. Speaking of inner thighs, now that we've got them nice and stretched out, let's do some inner thigh strength. So I'm gonna start on my left side, because why not? You can either be on your forearm all the way down on your side or up on your hand. I personally find forearm feels best. So your right leg is gonna come behind you. So you're kind of rolled, you're on your left glute. Left leg is gonna kick out to the front corner of your mat. Reach that right arm up overhead. You're gonna try to connect those two places and pull those two places apart. So I'm on the side of my left hip. There's a scoop to my abs as I reach arm towards leg, but I'm not collapsing in the body. I'm staying lifted through that bottom shoulder, through that left shoulder. You do not need to tap that leg with the hand. So you don't need to lift as high as me. Really try to lift from your inner thigh and your low abs and stabilize into your bottom shoulder here. You can play around with the angle so you're not all the way onto your tailbone, you're like on the side of your left glute. Knowing you can always pad that place if that's an area of sensitivity or discomfort. Few more here. Last two Batmas. Very good. Now come all the way onto your side. Your legs will be slightly in front of you. And what you're gonna think about doing is lifting both legs together as a unit and lowering those two legs down. I've got my head propped up for this one. I'm slurping my core, reaching those legs out of my hip crease and controlling that lower down. This is where you may need to add some additional padding through that bottom hip. And again, you should be able to peek down and see your legs, see your feet. So slightly in front of the body, slurping and lengthening the legs. One of my favorite named Pilates exercise. This is our banana, up and down. Now, if you're craving even more, you can add a lift of the lower body as you take the legs. So I've got my top arm, which is my right arm, braced slightly in front of me, and then I'm lifting that bottom arm, that left arm, really connecting into that right side waist. Making sure that we don't plop those legs back down, but really controlling that descent back down to the ground. Last few here. Either supporting the head or adding the upper body element. If you're feeling super fancy in your banana, you can ditch that supporting arm and work a little bit more balanced. Today is not the day for me for that, but maybe it's the day for you. Two more. Last one, let's lift and hold. Maybe trying to connect into that balance, cinching through that waist, holding for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's carefully press ourselves up and come to the other side for our Batmas. So now I'm on the right side of my body. I got my left leg behind me. My right leg is extended diagonally in front of me slightly, lifting that left arm overhead, Batmaing up and down, knowing you can also lay fully on your side and take these Batma lifts. You always have options in Pilates. It's about listening to your body, kind of playing around. It's always a little bit of a Goldilocks situation of finding the positions, finding those little adjustments to make the practice feel best to you. This is your time to mobilize, strengthen, and enjoy being in your body. So I never want anything that we do to feel torturous and definitely never feel unsafe. So knowing you can always make those adjustments. So a couple things I'm focusing on here, really trying to lift from the inside of my thigh versus the top of my thigh, tightening right inside my hip bones and staying rolled back through that bottom shoulder. So lots of things to focus on here. And breathing, very, very important. First thing you wanna focus on is making sure you're breathing. I'm on the side of that right glute here. Last few here, and then we'll get back into our bananas. We're reaching the end of our class. You guys are doing amazing. Home stretch with me here. Last two Batmas. and then rolling, or laying rather, onto your side. I've got my head propped up. You've got your legs long slightly in front of you. The legs are moving as a unit up and controlling that lower down. So I'm stabilizing into my center. That's where your point of balance comes from. Trying not to rely so much on that non-moving supported arm, really trying to hold our stability through our center. Lifting and lowering. Remember, if you're craving a little more of a spicy banana, you can flow through that upper body. So I'm trying to pull that rib cage down towards my pelvis and reach that bottom arm. Kind of thinking a banana-like curve through your upper body, through your lower body. Trying to slow down that descent as much as possible. So reaching long and then controlling that lower, feeling that power through the hip, through the inner thighs, through the waist. Last few here. Last two banana, we'll hold our last one. Lift those legs and hold for me, maybe extending top arm for a little balance element, holding long and strong for 4, 3, 2, and 1. Let's make our way to a seated position, kind of doing our reverse tabletop. So we're gonna play around with the wrist positioning today. We're gonna start with the fingertips pointing towards the backs of our hips, feet a comfortable distance away, and again, you want that load into the glutes. Please roll your shoulders back, start to push through the feet, and lift the hips up. Coming into reverse tabletop. So noticing my shoulders are not here, I'm pushing the ground away, trying to make space in my shoulders, lowering my hips down. Let's rotate now and have the fingertips point away from one another. You can also play around with scooting those feet further away from you. Lastly, on our next one, you're gonna point the fingers back, pointing back to the back of your room, away from your hips. And then I want you to just continue to lift and lower, choosing the position that feels best to you. I'm gonna work on keeping my fingertips pointed towards my hips for a few, and then reverse that orientation. You do not need to lift all the way, and you can also just take the roll of the shoulders back. But we really wanna try to draw those shoulder blades down the back towards one another, and maximum distance between the shoulder and the ears. Lifting from our core, lifting from our arms, lifting from our glutes. Full body integration here. Deep breaths. Making sure I really get that proper initiation, rolling my shoulders back, lifting my chest, knitting that rib cage together. We're gonna take 2 more here. Moving mindfully. 1 more, let's lift and hold. Pushing that mat away, slurping through those glutes long and strong. For 4, 3, 2, 1. Nice work. Roll out those shoulders, flip yourself around, and meet me in a downward facing dog. Lifting our toes, tucking them under, sending our hips high, finding that nice upside down V shape, and maybe pedaling out those heels, pressing one heel into the mat, then the other, trying to melt our chest and heart center forward, and lift those hips up and back. You can choose to stay in this downward facing dog, or maybe join me in a nice little plank flow. So I'm gonna lower into a plank, I'm gonna pull my right knee into my chest, I'm gonna place that right foot behind me and pike the hips up from my low abs. Finding high plank, pulling left knee into chest, extending left foot back and piking my hips up. The final progression here, if you're craving even more, is you can send that leg up into your 3-legged dog and then into your 3-legged march forward plank. So this is our most advanced option, completely optional. You can also take a supportive breakdown. You can also just take any variation of plank with knees up or down that feels best to you. If you're going for your 3-legged dog, do 2 more with your right leg for me, and then we'll switch to the left. If you're taking the alternating version, just continue to alternate for a few more moments. So now I'm switching into full progression, pulling left knee in, and then extending left leg to the sky. Last exercise of our strength building flow. Focusing on lifting and staying light through our joints, finding that power through our center. Last two here. One more. Nice work. Carefully make your way down to a comfortable seated position, whatever that means to you. Let's make fists with our wrists and very slowly, very smoothly, just make some circles through the wrist joint. We did a lot on our hands and knees today, so we just want to give a nice release. Important to do, maintaining good bone density and strength through our joints, not easy to do. Let's take a little bit of hip mobility. So you're gonna meet me in your Z sit. So one leg is bent at a 90-degree angle in front of you, and the other leg is slightly behind you in that same 90-degree angle. Knowing you can always bring yourself back, leaning back is gonna make this more supportive. So I'm gonna start to pick that back knee up, rotate towards that knee, and try to switch my Z to the other side, trying to keep my hips nice and smooth and my spine as tall as possible. So I need to widen my Z, make my Z a little bigger to make this a little smoother. So we lift that back knee, rotate and spiral. Again, come back onto those hands, make this feel best to you, and then maybe sit yourself up tall. If you're feeling popping, clicking, crunching, or you're having to really force this, that means that you need to take a variation of this, progressing to that full sit position. A few more here. So good for our hips. Trying to keep my chest up. It's hard for me, especially on that side. Very good. Let's make our way onto our stomach for a nice quad stretch. You know, you can always grab a yoga strap or Pilates ring to make this stretch more supportive. I'm resting my head onto my hand, bending my right knee so I can grab onto that right foot, lengthening through the front of that thigh, and taking 2 deep breaths here. One more deep breath. And switching. Holding onto the front, the top of the left foot, reaching that thigh long out of my hip crease. Big breaths in and out, calming and cooling down the body. Let's make our way to a seated butterfly position. Feet any distance from your body that feels best. Activating spine tall and bringing that chest forward. Maybe a little rock side to side. Deep breaths in and out, kind of melting and sinking into this stretch. Letting the head be heavy, flat back or rounded back, whatever feels best to you. One more big breath here. Let's begin our straddle. So finding that nice wide V position. Your legs do not need to be as wide as mine. And then I want you to take a gentle side bend up and over to one side, floating up through center and up and over to the other. A few more stretches side to side. Think about the spine decompressing, the rib cage reaching and arcing like a rainbow or crescent moon. One more stretch each way. And then let's meet at center. Let's begin to walk our chest forward, finding a deeper stretch for those inner thighs. And just take some really melty breaths. Try to relax through your hips, pelvic floor, through those inner thighs, letting the legs be long and heavy into your mat. One more deep breath here. Finding a seated forward fold. So we'll stretch and lengthen our legs long in front of us. Flat back or rounded back. We're trying to get right on top of those sitting bones. Float the arms and bring your body forward. So again, flat back, great option. You'll really feel those hamstrings if you want a little bit more back release. Feel free to drape your chest and spine over those legs. Maybe a little gentle baby rock, holding on to wherever feels best to you. One more big breath here. And then let's make our way onto our back For one final spinal twist, going a little bit deeper this time, I'm gonna invite you to stretch one leg long, knowing you can always choose to bend both knees. That's gonna be more supportive. So I'm picking one knee up, I'm draping it over my other thigh. So I'm coming into a gentle rotation. I'm taking that arm of the knee that's bent. So for me, it's my left leg that's draped over. It's gonna be my left arm that's reaching back and turning and looking towards that left arm, feeling this really beautiful stretch. Maybe extending right arm to meet into that T shape. 2 big breaths here. You know, you can always prop that knee up on a bolster, on a yoga block, or take both knees bent will be more supportive. Slowly grounding our pelvis into the mat and switching sides. So now I'm bending my right knee into my chest. I'm gently draping right knee, twisting towards the right, reaching right arm, twisting towards the left rather, reaching right arm towards the right, trying to gently turn my gaze to the right. 2 big breaths. Melting into the release. Slowly, mindfully coming through center, pressing yourself up to a comfortable seated position. In seated, join me in a couple ooey gooey rolls of those shoulders up, back, and down. I'm kind of involving my whole entire arm today. Let's take a big scoop and reach up towards our ceiling. Flip the palms, push that air away. 2 more big breaths with me. Up, up, up. Flip and press. 1 more. Let's connect our hands. Bend at the elbows, drawing through heart center. And absolutely fabulous job with this power and flow class. I hope you feel as invigorated, challenged, but still supported in your body as I do. I'm so, so proud of you. Have a beautiful rest of your day.